Hi, you're listening to my podcast, Colin in Conversation. I'm Colin Etchers. I'm a comedian, writer and broadcaster. And over the next few pods, we're going to be talking to the famous, the infamous and the fabulous. You're going to love this content, folks. You're going to want to comment, review, like. And anything less than a 5-star review, I'll consider a hate crime. But enough of me. Here's some more of me, with a cool guest. Welcome to another episode of Colin in Conversation. My guest today is the awesome Ricky Balshaw. Hello, Rick. How you doing?
Hello, mate. I'm good. Are you?
Yes, I'm really good, man. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you know, I'm recording this on my phone, and I've been joined by Lily here. So
Okay.
if I get knocked about, that's why.
Well, you've done Blackpool on a Friday night, haven't you?
I bloody have, mate, a few times. Yeah, this is light work.
You'll be all right with one dog then.
This is light work compared to that, mate.
It is. So where do we start? Paralympian,
Yep.
full-time comedian,
Yep.
podcaster, all-round nice bloke.
Oh, cheers, bro.
Where shall we start?
What do you want to know, mate?
Well, could it be argued? It could be argued you're an advocate for disability. Shall we start there?
Yeah, so I'm disabled. You probably can't tell because I'm sat down at the minute, but I have got cerebral palsy.
And it's a budget podcast, so we're not doing video anyway. So
oh, you're not?
No.
Right, okay. So you definitely can't tell that I'm disabled. So yeah, I've got cerebral palsy. I got stuck when I was born, didn't breathe, all that shit. So yeah, I've got CP. So on paper they've diagnosed me as diaplegia, the spastic diaplegia, which means just legs. But I've definitely been misdiagnosed because it affects my arms and hands as well. So I've just never been back to get the proper diagnosis. But I know that I've got spastic quadriplegia. So yes, I'm a disabled bloke. Started riding when I was 4, horse riding, as part of physiotherapy, and got onto the Paralympic team when I was 14.
Wow. So childhood, happy, cool.
You know what? It was good. So the school I went to, the primary school I went. So before nursery, I did go to a special school instead of like regular nursery. But that special school shared a car park with a primary school, a mainstream primary school. So there was at my primary school, there was a lot of kids there with disabilities. So I didn't have any shit at primary school really. Like it was just disability was normal. Then I went to secondary school, and I was the only kid in the whole school that had a physical disability. They'd never had one before. And I remember my dad sitting me down on the first day of school, and he said, "Right, Rick, someone's going to take the piss out of you today." And I was like, "What?" In my head, I'm thinking, I've just fucking completed primary school, mate. I got this in the bag. And he went, "No," he said, "someone's going to take the piss." And he said, "Look," he said, "I've got to drop you off at 8:30. He said, "I don't give a shit if I get a phone call from the headmaster at 1:45 saying that I've got to come and pick you up because you've been horrible to someone." Because he said, as soon as someone says anything to you, I want you to fire as many fucks into them as you can. I was like, all right, Dad, sounds. So I go into school thinking I'm King Kong's bollocks. You know what I mean? 'Cause one, my dad's just given me the motivational talk of the century, and 2, I didn't think it was going to happen anyway. But honestly, Cole, within 5 minutes, I was called a cabbage. Within 5 minutes of secondary school, I was called a cabbage, and I fucking ripped into this kid. Absolutely, just flew into him. And honestly, after that, I didn't have any shit at all at school.
Were you, because every comedian we're asked, were you the class clown as a kid? And I wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
No.
But you didn't have it as a defense mechanism or anything like that?
No, I didn't need it, mate. Like honestly, I think because I'd stuck up for myself on the first day, I think the kids who get bullied are the ones that don't stick up for themselves. And I, rightly or wrongly, am a believer of fight fire with fire. So if someone's going to take the piss out of me, I'm going to take the piss out of them. If someone hits me or goes to hit me, I'm going to hit them back, rightly or wrongly. That's what I believe. So as soon as he gave me shit, he got it back. And I think because the kids knew I was going to give it as good as I got, and I was confident within myself, I just didn't get any shit. It was quite good. School was great.
For the listeners, me and Ricky know each other, and we've had chats out of out of the podcast arena, and it would be fair to say that your dad had quite a unique way of instilling confidence in you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, my dad, like the Balshaw side of the family, are they're naughty. They've my dad's been in legal troubles before for stealing JCBs, like big time. We had CID raid the house and everything. So if I come from a very working class family, which I'm very, very proud of. No, I'm very, very proud of my background. And I think because my dad had to fight the way he did growing up, he sort of instilled that in me. And yeah, my dad and my mom, they both give it me very real. They never sugarcoated it. They didn't treat me like a princess. They bollocked me for being naughty, just as they would my brother, who's able-bodied, were treated exactly the same. And they were very real about the hassle and shit I was going to get growing up. No, they were great. They're dead. Yeah, just real.
And you know where this is heading, don't you? You
It
know what I mean?
depends.
You know
One
where
of a
this
few
is heading.
stories.
Well, you fancied yourself as a footballer.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah. Yeah.
We've got to have the story. It's my favourite that you do on stage.
I haven't said it for ages, but yeah, basically, primary school, I went home one day and I said to my dad, I'm going to be a footballer. My mum and dad were there. I said, I'm gonna join the football team, and my dad just went, "But you'll be shit." I went, "No, I won't. I'll be good, Dad." He went, "Nah, you'll be shit. Don't do it." Anyway, I did it that night, and I came back home, and he said, "How was it, Rick?" I said, "I was shit." Yeah,
But it was. It just goes to show that perhaps mollycoddling's not the way, you know.
I couldn't agree more. I think I see it a lot because I do a lot of motivational talks in schools and special schools and stuff like that. And in the special schools, it's more for the parents, and you can tell. You see these kids. You can see it. You can see the ones early on who are going to do well, who are going to not, because the ones who are mommy coddled and everything's sugar coated, and they're just told yes all the time. They're never going to make it. There are so many people in the world, able-bodied and disabled, that I just don't think have been told no enough through life.
Yeah.
And you can see the ones where the parents are, if I use the word strict, that might be over the top, but the ones that are just fucking normal with the kids, I think if you've got a disabled kid, you need to try and normalize things as much as possible and be real. And it's so easy to feel sorry for a disabled child as a parent, I think.
Yeah.
And to not want to do, the bollockings, the telling off and things, because you can slip into a pattern of, oh, they've got it hard enough. But I think you've just got to treat them normal, otherwise you end up going to raising little cunts.
And it's interesting that you say that you were treated the same as your able-bodied brother. Would your brother agree?
I think we've got, well, to a certain extent, yes. In terms of like discipline and stuff like that, he would definitely agree.
Yeah.
I think he has got a slightly different viewpoint on things because I probably needed extra attention. Like my mum would do a lot of physio with me and take me to physio sessions and my horse riding sessions that were started as physio but became a hobby. So I think that my brother at a young age probably felt that my mum especially paid more attention to me. I think as he's got older, he's realised why. But I think when he was younger, that might have been harder for him. But then on the flip side of that, you could argue the toss that he spent more time with my dad than I did.
Yeah.
Because whenever my mum was with me, he was with my dad. So it's a tough one. So it'd be interesting to talk to my brother about it. I've never actually spoken to him about
Maybe you should do a pod with him.
Nah, fuck that. He's too good looking. He's too good looking. He'll outshine me. I can't introduce the world to my better looking brother.
And it's going to sound terrible the way I've chose to word it, but when did the love affair with horses start? Let's go with riding.
Yeah, so I was introduced to horses when I was 4. My local physiotherapist recommended it. It's called hippotherapy. Hippo being something from the Latin of horse or something like that. Anyway, with my form of cerebral palsy, because I've got the spastic type, which means tight.
Yeah.
So the muscles in my legs especially are tight. They sit the kids on a horse. So it's, if you think about it, you're sat on quite a wide animal. So it stretches your adductors, which is like the muscles and ligaments in your groin. It stretches your hamstrings because you pull them down. And then also I've got no natural balance. So as the horse is moving underneath me, you're fighting to keep your balance the whole time. So it's kind of like brain training and physio without the kid realising they're doing physio. And it started, I loved it from day one, but I was shit. Like when I first started, Carl, I was shit. I had to have someone either side of me walking alongside the horse, holding me on. Otherwise, I'd just fall off. And then I had to have someone leading the horse as well. But I loved it straight away. And then eventually I found a bit of balance, and one of the leaders was able to go. Then the other one was able to go. So I was just sort of able to balance on my own with someone leading the pony. And then eventually the leader was able to go. So I was sort of freestyling it on my own and in control of the horse or pony at the time. And then I joined an able-bodied riding school. So I was trying to keep up with the able-bodied kids and trying to do everything that they were. And I guess that is what brought me on, really, and made me good, because I wasn't trying to be the best disabled rider there. I was trying to be the best rider there. And I think that was a big thing of my career, the fact that I was being taught alongside the able-bodied kids. And one coach in particular, actually, my first proper riding instructor, Glyn Jones, he died, unfortunately, a few years back. He had a heart attack while riding his motorbike and died. And it's tragic, but he was probably the first one that really treated me the same as the other kids in these lessons. And I remember a conversation, they were learning something called rising trot. So without getting too technical, you've got the walk, which is a 4-beat rhythm, which you just sit to, and then you've got the trot, which is a 2-beat rhythm. And what you can do, you can either sit to that, or you can do something called rising trot. So you sort of stand up in the stirrups for one of the strides, then sit down for the next. And all of the other kids were learning rising trot. And I said to him, I must have been, I don't know, 6, 7. I went, Glyn, I said, can I do rising trot? And he just looked at me, he went, I don't know, can you? And then he just pushed me to learn it. It treated me the same as everyone else. So I owe a lot to that bloke. And actually, his widow, Flossie, I still have a lot to do with. She's like an adopted grandma to me. She's ace.
Yeah. How did your very working class dad react to my boy wanting to show jump and stuff?
Well, it was dressage that I did. I didn't jump.
I kind of assumed at the beginning you'd have done a bit of the both. Oh, no,
I've only jumped twice, and once of them was by accident.
I didn't think at all, because jumping, I suppose, would be a little more awkward, wouldn't it? But the dressage, how did your working class old man think? What was he? How was he?
You know what? To be honest, I think he was proud that I was doing well and doing well in a sport, which I think, from a parent's point of view, having a disabled kid, you never expect them to excel in sport, of all things. So I think he was proud that I did that. I don't think dressage wasn't his thing. To be honest with you, Cole, dressage wasn't my thing. I didn't, even when I was on the team, like all the team are there and they'd want to watch everyone else and do all that. I didn't find it interesting. I was good at it, but I didn't. It wasn't my bag, like my dad. If I was going to watch a sport, I'd go and watch boxing or MMA or something like that. You know what I mean? But saying that, my dad, he was supportive. And he came to the Paralympics, and he was dead supportive. He genuinely thought I was gay for about 10 years of my life. He did. I spoke to him recently. He thought I was gay. Because dressage is a very effeminate sport. I was the only straight guy on the team.
But there is a class.
Thought I was gay.
There is definitely a class thing with horses, isn't there? You know what I mean? So when you were doing it, you were mixing with able-bodied riders, so there must have been a class thing. They must have been a bit posh.
Later on in my career, so early doors at the riding schools and that, it's very similar, because everyone's paying their 20-30 quid, whatever it is, for a lesson. But then as you get through it, you need money to be able to excel in the sport, because you need the animals with the qualities to be able to. It's like Formula One. You can have the best driver in the world in a Mini, he's not going to do anything. You can have the best car in the world with the shittest driver, and it ain't going to do well. But if you have the best driver in the best car, it's going to do well. And it's the same with dressage. If you have a talented rider on a talented horse, the partnership is going to do well. And without money, you're not going to get that partnership. So I was very lucky to be able to make a name for myself at a stage in the sport where we didn't have to have our own horses. We'd literally turn up to a competition and borrow horses. So I was able to make a name for myself there, so that when it did get to the stage that I needed this impressive, powerful, expensive horse, I was in a position that my name carried enough weight that I could get sponsorship. So I dropped very lucky there that I came into the sport when I did, because if I'd have come into the sport now, if I was 14 or 10 now, I wouldn't have the means to get into it now that the rules have changed. I got very lucky that the rules changed when I was already making a name for myself. And I didn't fit in. I was the odd egg there. The amount of people in management that I told to fuck off over the years is unbelievable, mate.
So How soon were you competing after you started?
So started riding at 4. I think probably realistically, I did my first competition when I was about 6, maybe 7.
Yeah,
I became national champion when I was 10.
nice.
No, I didn't, Cole. That's a fucking lie. That's a lie. I've just lied to you. I
All
wasn't at
right,
all.
we can cut that
It
out
was
if you want.
no, 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 no. Leave it in. I'm just doing the maths now in my head. I was 13 when
Right.
I was national champion. Sorry, 13 became national champion, and that's when I got invited to the trials for the team, and I got
Yeah,
onto the team when I was 14. So yeah, started competing when I was 6 or 7. National champion at 13, on the team, the Paralympic team at 14.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then off to off. Was it Beijing you went or?
So yeah, I went. I was on the team for 16 years. I missed out on the Athens games. Just missed out on qualification. I was named as the first reserve.
Yeah,
Then I went to the Beijing games. After that would have been London in 2012, but I fell off and broke my back in 2011. So I did have ignored doctor's orders. They told me to have 12 months off. I didn't. I had about 4 because it was the selection trials coming up for the London Games. And as a British athlete, you only
yeah,
really get the shot of a home games once in a career.
yeah,
So I had to try, but it was too soon. I wasn't.
yeah,
I knew at the time that I wasn't fit enough and I was injured and I wasn't good enough. I
yeah,
knew that, but I had to try. So I didn't get selected for London. I
yeah,
wasn't fit enough. But then the following year, I went to the European Championships and medalled. The year after that, I went to the World Championships and medalled. Then it was Europeans again, and I medalled. And then I retired during the selection trials for the Rio Games
yeah.
in
Well,
2016.
we've glazed over the fact you bloody podiumed in Beijing, didn't you?
Yeah, I got silver.
Yeah, but like we raced off. You know what I mean? Man's a medalist.
Mm.
You know, and we should have. If we were doing video, we'd have had you show your medal off because I'm sure you've got it pride of place on your mantelpiece.
It's in my sock drawer, mate. It's in my sock drawer.
And
So honestly, the Olympic medal or Paralympic medal is in my sock drawer, and
yeah,
then I've got like the Ziploc sandwich bags.
yeah, yeah,
All my other medals from like World Championships, Europeans, and
yeah.
stuff like that. All of them are in a sandwich bag in the garage.
And we'll move on from the racing in 1 minute. But let me just ask you, what's it like on the Paralympic Village?
Oh, the Paralympic Village is insane. Any athlete that you talk to that's been to a Paralympic or Olympic Games will tell you how incredible the village is. And the most impressive thing is the food court.
Right.
It's unbelievable. You walk into this room. So the Olympic Village or the Paralympic Village is like a full working town with everything you can imagine. It's
Yeah.
got shops, it's got cinemas, it's got arcades, it's got everything. It's got shops, but everything's free. You don't have to pay for a thing. And then where you go for your food is like this massive hall, and I reckon it was the size of, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 football pitches. It was huge. And there
Yeah.
was loads of these little stations, and you could literally go in and think, right, what do I want to eat today? Right, today I want a steak and dauphinoise potatoes, and the beer stall with that on. Or today I want lasagna and the beer stall. They had everything you could imagine at 24/7. And what was funny is that, I don't know if you know this, but every Olympic and Paralympic Games is sponsored by A, Coca-Cola, or has been historically, and B, McDonald's.
Right.
So in the Olympic Village, in the corner of the food court, there's a McDonald's. So it was really interesting to watch that as the games went on and got closer to the end, and more sports were finishing, the queue for McDonald's got longer and longer and longer. Because obviously the athletes are trying to eat well while they're competing
Yeah.
and training and stuff. But as soon as they're finished, they don't give a shit and they're just dogging down McDonald's, and everything's free. So
I
you get
mean,
like the power lifters that are putting 7 Big Macs together and shit and just having
yeah.
like McDonald's challenges. It was fucking good. There's a picture somewhere of me arm wrestling the Danish discus medalist.
Wow.
He fucking thrashed me. He was a strong dude.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, and partying, drinking,
There's not
mayhem.
any alcohol allowed in the village.
Is there not?
No, but that's not to say it's not there.
Okay.
Yeah, we partied hard. We were one of the first sports to finish dressage was. I think we finished on day number 7 or 8, something like
Well,
that.
even so, the horse does all the work anyway, innit?
Oh, here we go. Here we go with that shit. What you don't know is that's the biggest compliment you can give a dressage rider. Because
Really?
the art of dressage is to do it and make it look like you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
So for someone to say the horse is doing all the work, I say thank you very fucking much.
I mean, it's worth saying, right? Because dressage is that sport, right? That like it's like curling in the Winter Olympics. We don't look at it at all between the Olympics, but then no matter how hard you try, when the Olympics are on, you're transfixed by them dancing horses.
I think it's more comparable to gymnastics.
Yeah,
For the same reasons, but gymnastics, and the reason why I say gymnastics is because we we can look at it, we can appreciate it, and we think how amazing the gymnasts or the riders are. But me looking at gymnastics, I have not got a fucking clue what I'm
yeah,
looking at technically. And if you're not into dressage, you haven't got a clue what you're looking at. You don't know where the
yeah.
marks are won, you don't know where they're lost. But there's something quite endearing about watching these horses do what
It's
they're
fun to
doing.
watch.
The same as the gymnasts. Like I haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing, what's good and what's bad on the rings or the bars or the floor or whatever. But I love watching it. It's
Yeah,
entertaining, and I
yeah,
do think that actually dressage is quite entertaining. Despite what I said earlier, it is a beautiful sport to watch.
yeah,
And when you are knowledgeable in the sport and you know what you're looking for, it's really quite interesting as well.
yeah. And you retired before Rio.
Yeah,
How did retirement? Did negative effects?
yeah, yeah. I didn't cope well after I'd retired. Wasn't good mentally.
Yeah,
I think because I'd been on the team from the age of 14 to 16. Sorry, from the age of 14, I was on it for 16 years. So that's over half of my life being what I perceived as being someone. I had this
yeah,
status. I could always, being introduced to someone. I was Ricky. I'm on the Paralympic team. It's a status thing, and then that was gone. And all of a sudden, mentally, I was just a regular person again, which is
yeah,
nothing to be ashamed of. But from what I was used to, I found it a bit of a crash, and I didn't cope well.
yeah.
I did struggle mentally, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I went
No,
and got
let's be
help.
honest, man. You know,
Yeah. I got help for that. I'm not going to get into it, but I think certain organisations should and could do more to set up athletes for retirement.
in
I'm
terms of aftercare.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I because it is a massive crash, and you see it a lot with sportsmen and women. When they retire, they sort of go off the rails
yeah,
because they can't cope. They're not ready for it. I mean, look at Tyson Fury. Look at Joe Calzaghe.
yeah,
That's just boxing that I've taken.
yeah,
Fury ended up nearly killing himself driving into a wall. Calzaghe went into
yeah.
cocaine.
And
Um,
these are immensely rich people. Most
yeah,
sportsmen that
yeah.
retire, and they have to start thinking about how they're going to earn their money next.
Yeah, well, I retired fucking broke, mate, because yes, I was earning a lot of money, but I was in a very expensive sport, so it was in one hand out the other. So when I did retire, there wasn't a big chunk left in the bank for me to live
Yeah,
off. I had to get a job, and I got a job as a car salesman. Fucking hated it.
yeah,
Then I got a job. This next job's pretty cool, and I ended up at head of the sales team there. I basically sold garage cabinets, and we'd made like man caves for people.
yeah.
That was good fun. I did that for 5 6 years, and then about 4 years into that, no, 5 years into that, I started getting a bit bored, and that's when I took up comedy.
Yeah. And which do you prefer doing now, horse riding or comedy?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, comedy, mate.
And let's talk about comedy for a bit because I'm a comedian as well, and you know it's one of those things that somebody that's skilled in comedy makes it look quite easy, and I put you in that category. But
Appreciate that.
how did remember some of those early days, some of those early gigs?
Yeah, so my very first gig, I fucking ripped it, Col. I absolutely had a banger. My first 10 minutes at the Bush, I had a banger and I had a few absolute bangers. And then I got offered a 50 quid opening 20 in Hereford.
Yeah,
Um, and I went in with like the confidence of a fucking stallion.
yeah,
It was probably only my eighth, ninth gig. It was way too early for me to be doing a 20.
on
And
a
I
weekend.
fucking died on
Yeah,
my hoop. I
yeah,
learned a lot about myself that
yeah.
day.
I had one of them at Ruffle in
Yeah,
Loughborough. It was a
yeah,
Saturday night. I shouldn't have been anywhere near a 20-minute middle.
yeah,
Nowhere near it, right? And
yeah,
again, I just died like nothing, you know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
for those watching that don't know, once you've lost an audience, it's pretty tricky to get them back.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, this audience was the one that I lost was probably 90% female, and I had a joke at the start of my set. I've changed the joke since, but the joke was I got stuck when I was born. I got the umbilical cord wrapped around my throat, and my mum, let's be honest, that lazy bitch should have pushed harder. I think it's a funny joke. And it had been working for me so well until I was in a room where 90% of them were
Yeah,
female and they fucking hated
yeah,
me. And I've learned a lot about comedy since, and they were absolutely
yeah,
right. I
yeah.
think I don't think people realize how shit they are when they first start comedy,
Oh
because
no,
you have a few good gigs and you think, oh, I can go and do the Apollo now. I can go do Glee. I can
well,
go and do Frog and
especially
Bucket.
especially when you first gig, the MC will
Yeah,
normally ask the audience to just give this person a bit of encouragement. It's their first
yeah,
gig, and then
yeah,
the audience want you to do well, don't they? Because
yeah.
the MC's asked
They're
them,
on side. Yeah, if you get a
and
good
then
extra.
you. I
But
think I had that moment about 50 gigs in where I thought I'm all right at this, and then
yeah,
I think it was the next gig. The next gig, I had this horrific fucking thing. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? What Yeah, what made you do comedy? What was it that sort of pushed you towards it?
I've
When did you
always loved
decide?
comedy.
When did you decide I'm gonna have a go at this?
I've always loved comedy. I've loved comedy in all forms since being at school, whether that be scripted, sitcom, lives, improv, any form of comedy. I've always enjoyed comedy, as I say, in all forms, and I'd always wanted to give it a go. But while I was on the team, I was so busy because I was holding down the job as well and being on the team. There's
Yeah,
no way I could have done it. So when I just had the office job and I decided to do it, because I'd done a lot of public speaking when I was on the team, I'd done a lot of after dinner talks, a lot of motivational
yeah,
talks. And I'd learned then that my talks were not what they were expecting from someone of dressage.
yeah,
They were more entertaining, they were a bit naughty.
yeah,
So I knew that I could hold a crowd. So going into comedy, I already had that. I had 15 years of public speaking experience, so I wasn't your typical open micer,
yeah.
which is why, I don't mean this arrogantly, but I think that's why I was able to move through the ranks as quickly as I did,
Well, that
because I
would
did have 15 years of
that
experience.
that saves me having to say that because I was going to say some because I remember I've been performing just sort of 3.5 years, and I remember seeing you when I was right at the beginning, and you
Mm.
weren't a lot in then. I
Mm.
mean, you're probably what 4 years or something, four and a half
I've
years.
just started I've just started my fourth year.
Yeah, so I'm 4 years in April.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
and I'm not unhappy with where I am, but I'm a fucking long way behind you. You know what I mean? So and I work hard, I do the miles,
Yeah.
so you progress quickly because you're good. Do you know what I mean? Don't let's not mince words. But I think also we talked about this before, and I'd like to fucking just touch it quickly, is that there's a way of training. Do you know what I mean? There's a way of training that as an athlete,
Yeah.
and I said I had a theory that you just applied the same training logic
Yeah.
and I thought yeah, go on.
I think I think it's the same with anything. Like I do a lot of motivational talks now, and I'm currently working on a project. Hopefully, that I'm getting the Arts Council involved in. I This is going to sound so corny and so wanky, but
It's all right, mate. Do it.
I truly believe that anybody can achieve anything that they want to. Now, there are exceptions to that. And what I mean by that is swimming, for example. To excel at top level swimming, you have to have a certain body type, and that is out of your control.
Yeah,
But for the vast majority of things, whether that be an investment banker, a fucking comedian, a salesman, an actor, a singer, whatever you want to do, if you um, put the work in and really sort of apply yourself to and work hard, I truly believe that anybody can achieve anything. And I think the people that sort of sit there and wait for opportunities to land on their laps are the people that are never going to make it, because it's not going to happen. People always say, "Oh, you're in the right place at the right time." Well, yeah, that might be the case, but I've been out there 7 nights a week hoping that I'm in the right place, and at some point, someone's going to be there. So, yes, being in the right place at the right time, but you've got to make sure that you are in as many situations as possible to make that the case. And you've got to work hard. A joke, I'll say it first time on stage, and then it's going to be 6, 7 weeks before it's even ready to go onto a proper stage
Yeah.
because it has to be punchy. You have to work at it, and so many people write a joke and think it's finished, and it's just not good enough. It's not punchy enough. It's not snappy enough, and they're never going to make it as a pro or to these proper nights because they're not putting the work in because you've got to work at it. It's an art. It is an art form. It's one of the arts, and it goes everything from your body language to your facial expressions to your timing, and then
pauses.
on top of that, you've got to have the material as well.
Yeah.
And that's not, okay, there are probably people that it just comes natural to. An example of that is Paul Smith. He's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Something can happen to Paul Smith at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and he is so good, he could have a ready form 10-minute bit by 6 o'clock that evening.
Well, and the young man that you've been doing a little bit of tour support, Tom Stade.
Mr.
Do you know what I mean?
Stade.
You know what I mean? Tom Stade is my hero.
He's
You know what
incredible.
I mean? To be opening tour support for fucking Tom would definitely be a bucket list thing for me. Do you know what I mean?
It's
But
been a good few gigs. I've
Tom,
enjoyed
for
it.
me, is the most naturally gifted comedian on the circuit.
He's incredible.
In my opinion,
What?
he's the most. It's natural. He is the Ronnie O'Sullivan of comedy.
If you sat down and just read the words that Tom says during his set, you'd read it and you'd think, okay, that's all right. But then when he gets on stage and delivers it, he can make the most mundane of sentences sound hilarious. And another example of someone who can do that incredibly well is Scott Bennett. Their delivery, their timing, and expression are just the qualities that you can't teach.
Yeah. And Tom does these little things. He'll deliver a joke. He knows what he's saying. And then he'll mouth something with no sound at all. He'll just mouth something at the audience. And it just rolls the laughter on. Tom, for me, as I say, I think he's the Ronnie O'Sullivan of comedy. I think he's so it's natural ability. There's no one owns a stage for me like him.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of inspiration from Tom over the years. And we've obviously worked together on stuff previous. And I've told you that, after you've delivered your punchline, there are so many ways that you can extend the laugh and get another laugh just by exaggerating a facial expression or by, I don't know, moving a little bit or just changing what Tom is so gifted at and what I've learned from him is how to get extra laughs from doing nothing. Sorry, no, that's wrong. But from saying nothing. Not from doing.
He'll just mouth some words in the general direction of the audience and laugh, and it's carried the joke on for a bit longer.
Yeah, he's great.
He's, as I say, he's the night I decided I wanted to be a comedian was a New Year's Eve party. It was a tonic gig in Mason's Hall in Nottingham.
Okay.
And he was headlining the gig, and Troy Hawke, Garrett Millerick were on the bill as well, and Freddie Quinn was emceeing.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about comedy, and I had the stupidity to wear a woolly hat indoors.
Oh fuck!
I got tortured for an hour by three comics,
especially with them on. Yeah, of course you will.
But it was all right. It was that night that I thought actually I held my own. It wasn't too bad. I'd quite like a go at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom, gifted comic man, and that's
incredible.
And that's what happens when you get good in it. You get the good gigs.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been I consider myself very lucky to be getting the gigs I'm getting. Very, very lucky. Yeah, I'm really enjoying my career at the minute. I've got some really exciting things lined up throughout the year. I've just been for a talk in the Channel 4 offices in December. Nothing's signed, sealed, and delivered yet, so I'm not allowed to say anything, but there are things in the works that I'm very, very excited about.
Yeah, and go on, a couple of questions before we end it.
Man.
What's the worst gig?
That one I've mentioned, mate.
Oh,
how do you mean? As in my worst gig or the worst gig on the stage?
We've all done gigs where we get there and the worst one is when you walk out of a gig going, at least I got paid.
Yeah, you know what I mean? No, I think the worst gig is when before you're at a level of getting paid, when you get that feeling and then you've got to drive home with a bucket collection of about £3.
Yeah.
I think, my worst gig, my worst death was that one I've already spoke about.
Yeah. Mine was at the Ollie Bus. where you
Okay.
did your first gig at the Bush, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I died on my arse there, man, because I was doing material about conspiracy theories.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
not Bush material.
now I didn't know the main character in my story was called Dave.
Right.
So
Fuck.
the audience must have thought for 10 minutes I was directly taking the piss out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
credit, they didn't hassle me at all, but
Yeah.
they
To
stayed.
the listeners, the person who runs the Bush is called Dave. That's why
Yes.
the yeah.
Yeah. And they just thought I was messing with them, I think. But to their credit, they just stayed silent for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
and how did you take the bad gigs? Because my missus almost refused to stop taking me to gigs if I didn't calm down after bad ones.
So that one, I was distraught. Look, because it was my first death. Luckily, Doug Carter was there, and he was there for my first gig, and he was a big help in getting me past that and getting me through it. And at early stages of my career, I took bad gigs as learning experiences. Because of the athlete mentality I had, I decided to learn from them as opposed to get angry at them. Now I'm at a stage, if I'm delivering my Club 20, my set that I know works, if I have a bad gig with that now, I actually find it quite funny because I know for a fact that that material lands in 98% of the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I have a bad gig using that material, it doesn't bother me at all now.
Yeah.
If I have a bad gig with new material, well, that's a different story. You just go back and take it as learning, don't you?
I think the bad gigs stop once you get, because even I'm at a stage now where the bad gigs are getting far further and further apart. But you have nights where it's not quite as gone as well as you'd have liked.
Oh, yeah, you're always going to have those
You know
gigs
what I mean?
where you think that could have gone better.
It's that.
Any comedian who says they roof it every time is a fucking liar.
I try to use the feeling of my first death to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like it. Do you know what I mean? I was an angry bastard on the way home. What about what's the best gig you've ever done? There must be one that sticks in your mind as that lineup or that place or that.
The best gig, the one that stands out, was my first trial spot at the London Comedy Store. I was introduced to the stage by Thania Moore, and I absolutely ripped it. I thought I had roofed gigs before. I thought I had. After that, I know what roofing a gig is.
Yeah.
It turns out I had never roofed a gig until that moment. Now I know what roofing a gig is. So, yeah, that first 5 minutes there. And now, every time I go back, I fucking love going to the London Comedy Store. It's just, there's just something about it. There's just something about it that's magic.
It's a nice place to go as a podcast.
And also, Tom Stade was on the lineup with me.
Wow, yeah. Tom gets everywhere.
Yeah.
The Commander. If you want to check him out, he's on Commander, isn't he, on X?
Yeah, Commander Tom. He's on tour at the minute as well. And
he's on tour. And you might see Ricky as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be there doing a lot of his tour support. So, come check us out.
Yes, right. My final question, because my favourite food, Ricky, is sandwiches.
Right.
Like my favourite food. So what I'm asking every guest at the end of the show to round off the interview is if I've given you 2 bits of bread and you can have anything in the middle of that, what's going in that sandwich, Ricky Balshaw?
Oh, what's going in that sandwich? I'll tell you what I'm doing with that. I'm separating the bread apart. I'm toasting it. I'm letting it cool down, which you might think is weird. Then I'm putting a big thick layer of Philadelphia on it. And then I've got this homemade chili sauce and just put a few blobs on that. And that's how I'm getting rid of that toast.
Wow, that's the one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice. Ricky Balshaw, you've been a legend, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks, bud.
We'll talk to you again when you're filling the O2.
Here's hoping, mate. Here's hoping.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy. All the best. Ta-da.
Thank you for choosing my podcast from the plethora of podcasts available. Oh, yeah, if you want to find out more or hire me or, just say hello, you can find me on all social medias at Comic Colin 78. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the others. Comic Colin 78. That's Comic Colin 78.
The Colin in Conversation podcast was presented by Colin Etches and edited and produced by Neil Long at neillong.com.